Hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting this evening's broadcast. Up first, no hazardous weather going on, so no watches, warnings, or advisories anywhere in the state for tonight, tomorrow, and probably through the weekend, the way it looks right now. So moving on to the the breakup map here. Not much left to break up here south of the mountains. Still have some areas of some open here along the Noatak River and the Kobuk River here, also some open areas. And I think that's a stretch of mostly open right there. And then the lower end of the Noatak River as well. Definitely for the Yukon River. And then we've got here mostly open along quite a stretch here, and then completely open down over the Delta. North Slope rivers, well, the Koyukuk still has some ice up toward the Brooks Range there, otherwise it's slowly dissolving as well. North Slope rivers, Colville, Sagwan, those are still iced up. And for fire danger, a little less extensive than it was yesterday, especially back here where it was all the way out to the Seward Peninsula. This is still holding, though, looks like right over the Kobuk Valley today, and less wind here, and also some moisture working in. There was some light precipitation amounts over in the upper Tanana Valley, over towards Northway Tok, in and around there, as much as 1/10 of an inch. Other areas didn't receive any, so it was kind of hit and miss. It was still cloudier with a lot less wind than yesterday, so lost some of that fire danger there. Still pretty high in a fairly large area up toward the Yukon River there, Beaver on up to the northeast along the Porcupine. And then still that tough, persistent area there in the central Copper River Basin. And for the satellite imagery today, see this band of showers did bring a little bit of moisture there into the southeast Upper Tanana Valley area, north of the Alaska Range there, and also some showers in the Alaska Range, but mostly out of the Copper River Basin today, with a few sun breaks showing up there. Clouds and areas of showers and light rain, especially over the northern panhandle today. Juneau and Haines picking up anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch of precipitation in the last 12 hours. And also moisture in southeast flow here, keeping some shower activities and mostly cloudy skies. Kenai Peninsula on down to Kodiak, but rainfall amounts pretty light. And also some showers back through here, which totaled up to about 1/3 of an inch today at Ruby on over to Galena along this band right through there. So kind of a wetting rain plus going on, not quite a soaking rain, need 1/2 an inch for that, but definitely some moisture with this band here, and then it extends down into the Bering Sea across Nunivak Island. They're getting some fog and drizzle, light rain, or mostly light rain or drizzle there for the Pribilof Islands. Really didn't see any reports of fog. There were some flurries there at Tin City. They had some fog, but back up Arctic coast, most of the flurries on the west side. Wind still pretty brisk up on the east side today, with gusts running 40 to 50 miles per hour. Out in the west, flow coming down from the north around high pressure over Kamchatka Peninsula. So no storminess working in at this point. Trough right through here, probably break off and work its way eastward over the next couple of days. May or may not reach the Pribilofs, but we'll have to see. That's about all that's going on out there in the west. You can see on the chart here just kind of ridging coming in from Kamchatka into the Bering. So light winds, lots of clouds, a few breaks out there going on. So it's not completely, there are some areas of VFR out there. It's not completely IFR marginal. Same thing here for the Bristol Bay area. Showers on Alaska, taper off as you go up the Alaska Peninsula there, and then kind of pick up again around Kodiak with the southeast flow. High pressure in the Gulf, weak high pressure, really just kind of area of a lack of storminess rather than an actual area of high pressure between this low to the southeast and the lower pressure in the interior. And the showers up there over the eastern Tanana Valley, upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, but sunshine back to the west. Temperature this afternoon anywhere from 65 to 68 or 9. I didn't see any 70s showing up yet as of 3 p.m. And then maybe some showers here along the Brooks Range and some clearing back to the northwest. And the winds up here, 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts, Kaktovik over toward Dead Horse in that area, but those diminish considerably. And that's where you pick up the flurry conditions, maybe some fog, Barrow on down to Wainwright and Point Lay to Cape Lisburne. But nothing there for Kotzebue. And the southeast coast, again, some shower activity there today going on. And again, Juneau had about 1/4 of an inch of precipitation and Haines 1/3 of an inch, and lighter amounts to nothing on down to the south. Have this system down here to the south that tonight will advance, spread some rain up to the Queen Charlottes, but will stay off the coast. In fact, might stay off the coast through tomorrow as well. You're going to hold on to this moderate shower, widespread shower activity. Some will be moderate here, Lincoln Canal, Glacier Bay, Klondike Highway, and kind of Juneau right on the edge. It should start tapering off there later tonight anyway. But it'll stay unsettled definitely for the Panhandle into Yakutat. Some of that will slip on up into the North Waitok area again and maybe Nebezna. High pressure very weak here over Prince William Sound. Still some lingering showers, southern Kenai Peninsula. Kodiak Island, amounts will be light though, otherwise just variably cloudy over the Kuskokwim Valley on down to Bristol Bay. And trough here continues out of that 1,002 millibar low near White Mountain there. Now keep some unsettled conditions there as well. Otherwise not too bad over the interior. Just some real isolated showers in the central areas, fog and flurries with diminishing winds on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And chance of rain, fog, or drizzle with this front down to the south there, really not much of a gradient with it. So wind's a non-factor across the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, at least through tonight and probably tomorrow as well. And for first day of the weekend, still have some leftover moisture here around Adak, but maybe some drizzle. That might be a little pessimistic. That front really just drops off and washes out to the southeast there. Weak trough keeps drizzle, fog, lower flying conditions in over the Alaska Peninsula to roughly on Alaska. That kind of extends back up across the Protolos to another trough here that's slipping off to the southeast slowly. Otherwise, look for a partly to mostly sunny day. Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta into the Kuskokwim Valley with mostly cloudy skies and scattered showers along that narrow trough axis here from right around Galena back up into the maybe the Noatak area, possibly Selawik, Kotzebue, just a risk of a shower, and showers here over the eastern Tanana Valley. Pretty widespread again for tomorrow, and then drier down over the Copper River Basin. This front keeping off the coast there. It's the low kind of slowing down and trying to pull back to the west. The front really weak and it's just a narrow band of precipitation. Looks like it'll stay off the coast at least through tomorrow. So taking a look at the Sunday forecast, that whole mess kind of, well actually this is the trough, the old low center really just washes out. The front kind of backs around, or at least the moisture with the front backs around along this trough here. And that'll slip on up, brings chance of rain to the Kenai Peninsula, Seward, maybe into western Prince William Sound, but it's kind of right on the edge there. But that'll extend down across Kodiak for some showers, especially Shelikof Strait. Kamishak Bay looks cloudy and damp for the day Sunday, but northern Cook Inlet is mostly cloudy and dry. Maybe some sun breaking out over the Susitna Valley, and definitely from the Kuskokwim Valley over the eastern interior. In fact, sunshine temperatures into the lower 70s, the way it looks now for the Fairbanks area and other areas into the upper Yukon. Isolated showers developing in the afternoon. Maybe a risk of a thunderstorm as well up there over the Kobuk Valley area. Arctic coast, lighter winds, winds continuing to diminish, fog and low clouds likely along the outer coastline, locally into the North Slope area during the afternoon hours. Now out west we finally have a front pushing into the far western Bering Sea. That'll bring an increase in the wind a little bit there, maybe small craft advisories and rain and fog, but only as far east as Shimi and Attu. Adak and Atka looking pretty good with this moisture from that trough staying to the north. And for lows for tonight, mid to upper 20s, North Slope and the Arctic coast, with the lower 40s here in the central interior to mid to or 30s there for the Seward Peninsula, 36 at Nome, 29 Savunga, right at freezing for St. Paul, and mid to upper 30s for the Aleutians, right on up to the Alaska Peninsula, upper 30s Bristol Bay, 38 to 43 South Central Alaska, and in the mid 40s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow down that way, 55 to 63. And temperatures here in the Tanana Valley definitely well into the 60s, 65 to 70. Could see 71 or 2 in some places tomorrow. 55 to 63 Susitna Valley and Cook Inlet, with Copper River Basin, Gulkana maybe 62. And the lows again down in the lower 40s in the interior, mid to upper 20s along the Arctic coast, mid 40s for the Panhandle, 30s out west, followed by highs Sunday afternoon. Again, 70s now as far west as Tanana, and mid 60s down into the Copper River, or down into the Kuskokwim Valley. Otherwise, 70s, 70, 75 for Eagle, Fairbanks on down to Northway, 65 to 8 or so for the Copper River Basin, mid 60s for the Susitna Valley, as well as the southeast coast, except Haines may reach 70.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather, IFR again over the northern Bering Sea, marginal VFR down to the south across the Aleutians, and marginal VFR here, Kodiak Island up into Kamishak Bay, and up the east side, eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. VFR though, much of the interior. Pick up some possible IFR here in the Brooks Range, but more so back along the North Slope and Arctic coast. Marginal for the Panhandle, afternoon improvement there. Marginal VFR pulls well off the coast, but hangs up along the North Gulf Coast here. Kodiak Island stays marginal, and the interior, good VFR, sunshine. Some marginal VFR again possible along the Brooks Range. It'll be kind of a hit and miss sort of thing, but IFR in the North Slope, central North Slope of the Arctic coast, and the IFR out here to the west remains about the same. Moving on to Sunday morning, a little more expansive area of IFR here over the Bering, but staying off the southwest coast, but extending up through the Bering Strait and then back across the North Slope and the Arctic coast. Good VFR here in the interior. Some possible marginal conditions there, western Cook Inlet over to the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. Marginal VFR for the Aleutians. IFR slipping on into the east side of Kodiak and Fognak Islands, but the marginal VFR staying, again, well off the coast here of the Panhandle. And let's see if that holds through the afternoon. And it does. Good VFR, southeast coast, and then to portions of the Gulf of Alaska here, Prince William Sound, good VFR right up now till you get to the North Slope there and the central North Slope Arctic coast in the IFR zone. Risk of a thunderstorm down here possibly along the Yukon River, really just a slight chance. And IFR back to the west and northwest Bering here, marginal VFR, Adak all the way up to around Pilot Point. Passes, Anaktuvik, VFR. Adigan, same forecast. Actually, Adigan could see some marginal early on and then becoming VFR with Lake Clark and Merrill, mostly VFR, or there will be VFR. Same forecast for Rainy, good VFR for Windy, Isabel, Mentasta, all VFR. And Tanita VFR, both eastern, western entrances and through the pass. And for Portage, possible marginal VFR the entire day would be on the eastern entrance here. Otherwise, not too bad. Through the pass into the west, it'll be VFR. And for Chilkoot and White, starting out marginal, becoming VFR probably before the end of the morning hours. And for the freezing levels, not much of a gradient here across the southeast coast, kind of in that 4,000 to 6,000 foot zone, so call it 5. And 2 to 4 here over southern Alaska. And warmer air aloft up in this area, so about 6,000 to 7,000 feet up over the northeast and the Arctic coast, and then 4,000 feet down across the northeast Bering, and around 2,000 or less here for much of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And for icing, really no significant icing anywhere in the forecast for tomorrow. About the only spot would be where there's some possibility of a thunderstorm up here. Could be some mixed icing associated with that. And for the jet stream, again, a couple of lows here moving eastward across the Pacific. This one up here with the western Aleutians. But that's keeping the jet well to the south there. It splits here off the California coast. One branch comes up from the southeast, about 70 knots across the Panhandle. Good strong ridge over northwest Canada. 9,000 feet, looking something like this. 25 knot winds along and off the coast of the Panhandle there, otherwise 10 to 15 farther east. And not too bad over the eastern interior, southerlies to southeast, 10 to 20 knots. Lighter here over southern Alaska is 10 to 15, and then 15 to 20 up along the west coast of that weak system near the Bering Strait. Out west, high pressure, northerlies 10 to maybe as high as 20 knots farther to the west, but 20 knots with this low across the Alaska Peninsula. And at 3,000 feet here, pretty weak low there, 5-knot winds around that, and then about 10 to 15 over the Aleutians. And for the Panhandle, southeasterlies 20 to 25, but that's mostly off the coast, much lighter over the inside waters. Interior Alaska here, really light and variable with the winds, 5 knots or 5 to 10, maybe up to 20 there, southern Prince William Sound, 15 for Kodiak, and that's about it. Otherwise, we've got some narrow band of southerlies there up the west coast here at about 20 knots. And for turbulence, really no significant turbulence anywhere expected, possibly here along the central and eastern Arctic coast, mostly below 4,000 feet of a mechanical turbulence type of variety there. And again, risk of a thunderstorm for the Selawik Valley area, but that probably won't result in much in the way of any significant turbulence as well. So after the break, I'll be back and look at the marine forecast and the sea ice conditions.
Space weather affects technologies. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches to our customers so they can take action.
The Space Weather Prediction Center has had a long-standing relationship with the power industry, so they've been aware that solar storms, the geomagnetic storm piece of that, can affect the operation of systems and induce extra currents and loads on those systems that can either trip those systems offline or in the worst of cases, cause damage. That relationship goes back for several decades. In fact, a big incident in 1989 where part of Quebec was tripped offline that affected something like 6 million customers for about 9 hours. I think that really raised the awareness in the power industries.
When we get the alert, we watch the grid and start looking for issues. Are we seeing a decline in voltage? Are we seeing equipment failures? And we readjust the system to try to mitigate those problems, try to keep the lights on and keep it from going out.
So we're averaging about 500, 550 kilometers per second.
If we didn't have this early warning, we wouldn't see it until our sensor saw it. Getting more information quicker and faster before the storm hits, not during the storm, is a big improvement.
In the long term, I think what we need and what we're moving toward, the U.S. as a whole, is better modeling, fully understanding this phenomenon, understanding how it would impact specific systems.
Rather than actually experiencing a storm, we can simulate storms in our software and see what the impact is. We try to get ahead of it. We always plan that if there's an outage, how can we keep the lights on? What's the best process to prevent it?
In the end, 5-10 years from now, there's going to be a whole mix of operational procedures driven by what we do on prediction and warning. And then there also will probably be some level of hardware controls to ensure the reliability of the grid.
Space weather affects technologies. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches to our customers so they can take action.
There's different types of impacts on communication systems, and the HF we call the high frequency, which is that band of communications 3 to 30 megahertz. But it's a very important band of radio communication because it's used widespread. It's used, for example, by the airlines.
HF radio is most commonly used for position reporting when you're going across the ocean airspace, which is devoid of radar. And ATC can't see you, so it's up to you to report your position and your altitude and your speed.
HF works great most of the time, except during a big flare. And during a big flare, that HF communication capability could be gone within a minute or two. So as soon as we see something happening in there, or we see a flare, it's one of the first things we do is alert the aviation community, hey, big flare, HF's going to be impacted.
Once we know that there's an event going on, then the aviation industry and the airlines can react to that. They can alter their routes over the poles. They can lower the altitudes that they're flying at, or maybe decide not to fly at all in the interest of their passenger safety.
So that's just one example of how HF is used, but the emergency response community will use it a lot too. It's one of their primary backups.
When you've lost connectivity between certain government agencies, it gives you that long-range coverage to talk from out-of-state to federal governments or from the FEMA locations to the state emergency operations centers.
So if you've got a big hurricane impact in the coastline, whatever big city, we've got the cell towers down and whatnot, we've got emergency communication folks in there. Those folks are very familiar with space weather and how it impacts their systems.
Here in recent years, it was used during Katrina when we had a lot of communications outages down there. It was also used during Hurricane Ike. There was an outage of the telephone circuits with the Texas State Emergency Office, so it was used in both of those situations.
So when we talk about backup, especially for the airlines, typically they'll have SATCOM, so that'll be satellite communication.
The satellite technology that emergency responders use could be GPSs, could be satellite phones, satellite data terminals.
Space weather events can impact SATCOMs. The impact can range from a nuisance to loss of a spacecraft. So we will give them the heads up. If we have space weather events, flares, whatnot, they need to know what's impacting their systems. Situational awareness is key. Time is of essence to these folks. Again, it's life and death.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis continuing to, even from yesterday to today, fair amount of ice, less here, especially south of Bering Strait. Still have a narrow band there right on down to the north shore of St. Lawrence Island. And this area continues to open up here over the southeast Chukchi Sea and off the northwest coast there, and thinning out up the west side of the Arctic coast. And that's going to continue to slowly thaw over the next 5-6 days. And in fact, there might be a little bit of a southerly drift to some of the ice fields. And for the coastal water forecast, southeast coast, smoke craft advisory, southeast winds 25 knots tomorrow, seas 10 feet. Southeast 15, southern inside waters northeast or variable to northeast at 10. Stevens Passage, Lincoln Island, Glacier Bay, south winds 15 knots with 3-foot seas. And for Sunday, north 10, real light winds here over the entire stretch of the inside waters. I call it variable 5 to 10 with 2-foot seas. East to southeast 15 on the south coast, east to 10 on the north coast with 7 to 6-foot seas. For Cook Inlet, northwest at 10 tomorrow, east winds 10 knots for Kamishak Bay, 15 out of the east for the Barren Islands, northeast 15, western North Gulf Coast, and then easterlies at 20 here around Middleton Island, Bristol, or Prince William Sound, northeast at 10, light winds continue there with seas at 2 feet. And then for Sunday, also north at 10 with 2-foot seas there for Prince William Sound. East winds 20 knots. Not much change there for the eastern North Gulf Coast, but small craft advisories now here for the western North Gulf Coast zones. And then those turn easterly for the Barrens at the same speed. Northeast 20, Kamishak Bay, and northeast 10 to 15 for Cook Inlet. Out to the west, Alaska Peninsula, north to northwest winds here, 10 to 15 knots. Light northerlies at 10 for the Bristol Bay area. And southwest of Sitkinak, light northeast drift there at 10 knots, but 15 on the east side of Kodiak and 20 knots there in Chillicothe Strait. Those pick up, small craft advisories, 25-knot winds with seas 8 to 9 feet for Kodiak Island, Chillicothe Strait, Sitkinak to Castle Cape, north at 20, northwest 15 here for the Alaska Peninsula, and north at 15 for Bristol Bay. Out west in the Aleutians, west-north, north-northwest 15 knots for areas west of Adak, for Adak and Atka specifically, north to northeast at 15, and northwest 15 knots there across Unalaska Island. And then on Sunday, Fox Islands here, north to northwest at 15 to 20 knots, 4 to 5 foot seas, northwest 15 for the central Aleutians. Light wind conditions continue through the weekend here for the entire Aleutian chain. May see a kick up to 20 knots there, that next front pushing into the west for the Shimiatu area. And for Norton Sound tomorrow, south 15, but northwest 15 for St. Lawrence Island. Variable here along the southwest coast, 10 to 15 knots, northwest 20 for the Pribilofs, and 15 knot northwest winds for St. Matthew Island. Then on Sunday, north winds at 10 here, pretty light now. St. Matthew Island, Pribilofs, in fact, all the Bering Sea light winds, northwest 10 to 15 along the coast, and northerlies 15 for St. Lawrence Island, as well as Norton Sound with 3 foot seas. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, brisk wind advisories continue through tomorrow, actually extend all the way to the central coast. Then these are small craft advisories on the west side with the open water now with 5 foot seas. And from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, east at 15, Cape Thompson to Wales, the Bering Strait, northwest at 20. Outlook for Sunday, real light winds, light and variable here. Right on up from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, 10 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet, east 15, western Arctic coast 3 foot seas. See quite a drop off in the winds here, especially on the central coast, down to 10 knots out of the east, 15 knots over toward demarcation point. For tonight, again, still pretty gusty on those winds there. Again, brisk wind advisories out tonight and through tomorrow up there, or at least a brisk wind advisory through tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, maybe some patchy areas of fog and flurries, dry over the interior, lingering showers here over the northeast side of the Alaska Range. Isolated showers tapering off over the Kenai Peninsula, basically dry with light winds, chance of rain in the central Aleutians. And showers hanging on to the Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area, maybe from Juneau on over to Yakutat. And then those are gone by tomorrow, and partly to mostly sunny skies replace it ahead of this front, which is having a lot of trouble reaching the coastline there. Actually, the moisture trying to pull back to the northwest a little bit, but partly sunny south central Alaska, mostly sunny and warm up over the interior. Again on Sunday with highs in the lower to mid 70s.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.